Good day, ma'am. Good day, everyone. We are the group reporters of the South African literature. South Africa. The Republic of South Africa is a country located at the southern tip of Africa. It has a 2,798 kilometers of coastline that stretches along the South Atlantic and the Indian Oceans. To the north lie the neighboring countries of Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. To the east are Mozambique and Swaziland, and within it lies Lesotho, an enclave surrounded by South African territory. South Africa is the 25th largest country in the world by land area, and with close to 53 million people, is the world's 24th most populous. Capital cities: Pretoria. Pretoria is the South Africa's administrative capital, serving as the seat of the executive branch of government and as the host to all foreign embassies to South Africa. Capital cities: Cape, eh, Cape Town. Cape Town is the legislative capital of South Africa. It is the country's city and the seat of the Parliament of South Africa. It is the country's second largest city after Johannesburg and the largest city in the Western Cape. Bloemfontein. Bloemfontein City, capital of Free State Province, formerly Orange Free State, and judicial capital of the Republic of South Africa. Famous landmarks: Robben Island. The island of Robben is famous for being a prison for the father of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. For 18 years, a total of 27 imprisonment years, the island could be reached by ferry from V&A waterfront at the timings of 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 1300 a.m. Robben Island is a historical landmark in the Western Cape of South Africa. Cradle of Humankind. The Cradle of Humankind is a UNESCO recognized heritage site located in Johannesburg. It represents the long-old story of the human race by highlighting the humanoid. Africa is considered as the birthplace of humankind. Literary writings of South Africa. South Africa has a rich and diverse literary history, with realism, until relatively recently, dominating works of fiction. Fiction has been written in all of Africa's 11 official languages, with a large body of work in Afrikaans and English. This overview focuses primarily on English fiction, though it also touches on major poetic developments. The Colonial Adventure. The first fictional works to emerge from South Africa were produced by colonial writers whose attitude to indigenous South Africans was at best ambivalent, if not outright hostile. This is especially true of the writers of adventure-type stories, in which colonial heroes are romanticized and the role of black South Africans was reduced to that of enemy or servant. One such writer, Rider Haggard, wrote many mythical and adventure stories. Beginning in the early 1880s, his most famous book is King Solomon's Mines in the 1886, a bestseller in its day, and filmed several times up to the 1980s, like subsequent novels such as Alan Quatermain and She, both 1887. Its central character is the hunter Alan Quatermain, Haggard's ideal of the colonial gentleman. So, thank you, ma'am. The next pages will be explained by my group mates.
Good day, ma'am. I am Jomar Potal. I am the next reporter. The Colonial Adventure. The first fictional work to emerge from South Africa were produced by colonial writers whose attitude to indigenous South African was at best ambivalent in not outright hostile. This is especially true of the writers of adventure type stories in which colonial heroes are romanticized and the rule of black South Africa was reduced to that of enemy or servant. One such writer, Rider Haggard, wrote many mythical and adventure stories, beginning in the earlier 1880s. His most famous book in King Solomon's Mines in 1886, a bestseller in its day and filmed several times up to the 1980s. Subsequent novels such as Alan Quatermain and She Boat 1887. Its central character in The Hunter, Alan Quatermain, Haggard's ideal of the colonial gentleman. 11 languages of South Africa literature: Afrikaans, English, Zulu, Xhosa, Soto, Pere, Tiswana, Venda, Sisweta, and Ndebele. Afrikaans is spoken throughout South Africa and is a mother tongue with white and colored. The first problem in students of South Africa literature is confronted with the diversity of literacy. The Afrikaans literacy system is contrast to the African language engaged with the European artistic movement such as symbolism, expressionism, modernism, postmodernism, Dadaism, and the like American audience. Biblical influence. The African-speaking people of South Africa are mainly descended from Dutch Calvinists and French Huguenot immigrants of the 17th century. The Bible has been an important factor in their life and thinking. The Afrikaans language, a variant of Dutch, took shape in the late 19th century, and biblical influence were reflected in it and in the early literature. Scriptural themes were common in the Afrikaans novel, and some Afrikaans verse was influenced in the subject matter and style, notably by Psalms and Ecclesiastes. Coffee for the Road by Alex La Guma. The mother had been driving all night and she was fatigued, her eyes red, with the feeling of sand under the lids irritating the eyeballs. They had stopped for a short while along the road the night before, parked in a gap of the road outside a small town. There had been nowhere to put up for the night. The hotels were for whites only. In fact, only whites live in this town, and everybody else except from servant lived in tumble-down mud houses in the location beside. They did not know anybody in this part of the country. The landscape raped by like a film being run backwards. Red, brown, yellow, red, pink, red, all studded with sparse bushes and broken boulders. To the east, a huge outcrop of rock strata rose abruptly from the earth like a titanic wedge of purple and lavender layered cake topped with chocolate-colored boulders. The car passed over a gravel road, and the red dust boiled behind it skimmed the brush behind the edge of the road, flitting along as fast as the car. Behind the glass counter and the trio of soda fountains, a broad, heavenly woman is a green smoke through a little stack of accounts, ignoring the group of dark-faced pressing around the square holy square hole in the side wall. She had a round-shouldered, thick body and reddish complexion and face that looked as if it had been sand-blasted into its component parts. Hard plants of cheeks and nobly cheekbones and a bony ridge of nose that separate twin spools of dolly gray, and a mouth a bigger gas gold and malevolent as lizard chop and starting crack. The crack opened and the screech came from it, harsh as the sound of metal rubbed against stone. Coffee, my Lord Jesus Christ, the voice screeched, a bedimned collie girl in here. The eyes start in horror at the brown tire, at some India face with its smart sunglasses, and the city cut of the tan suit. Collie's coffers and Hottentots outside. She screamed, "Don't you bloody well know? And you talk English too. Hey!" The mother stirred a tear startled, and then somewhere inside her something went off, snapped like a tide would spring suddenly loose and jangling string into action. And she cried out with disgust, and her arms came up and the thermos flash hurled at the white woman. The flash The flash spun through the air, and before the woman behind the counter could ward it off, it stuck her forehead above any of eyebrow bounced away, thinking as the thin glass inside the metal cover shattered. The woman behind the counter screeched and clapped a hand to the bleeding gas over her eyes, staggering back. The dark face at the square hatch gasped. The dark woman turned and stalked from the cafe in a rage. A small riot van, a Land Rover, its window and spotlight screen with thick curves, and had been pulled up halfway across the road, and the dusty automobile parked opposite to it, forming a barrier with just a car-wide space between them. A policeman in khaki shirt, trouser, and that cap leaned against the front fender of the automobile and held a tin gun across his thigh. Another man in the khaki sat at the wheel of the car, and third policeman stood by the cop, directing the traffic through after examining the drivers. Thank you for listening, and that's all for today's mom. Thank you and God bless, mom. And advance Happy New Year.